Go. Well, hello to everyone watching this on the YouTube page. Thanks so much for tuning into the video version. We're going to get ready to start the show in just a second here as I get ready to queue up all my audio and everything. And then in a 3, in a 2, in a 1. The Millennium Falcon. We think we know everything about it, but do we? There's a new piece in Entertainment Weekly that highlights a few interesting tidbits about that old freighter. In The Force Awakens, we're going to talk about it, and Gwendolyn Christie, as well as the other news of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, it's officially single digits until we see The Force Awakens in theaters.
Falcon flight with destiny, headlong into the fight. Birds of a feather, well weathered together, chasing the dark from the night. Falcon flight with destiny, headlong into the fight. Birds of a feather, well weathered together, chasing the dark from the night.
Oh, that's the sound. That's the sound of Falcons flying with destiny. The hashtag burning up the Twitter sphere. Hashtag Falcons fly with destiny. We kind of made it a thing last week. Oh boy, howdy, do we have a great show for you. Cannot wait. I'm Riley Blanton, your host. I'm going to bring him in. It's Mr. Steve Glosson. What's up, Steve?
What's happening, man?
Oh, not too much. Just, 9 days until The Force Awakens.
Is it 9?
9 days.
Is it 9 days?
Well, 8 if you count the midnight screening until the wide release. Yeah.
I'm just thinking to the 18th. I guess I go 10 days today since it's the 8th.
Oh, that's true. And see, this is my problem is that I'm as I will queue up here on the video version, I have my handy dandy how many days remaining until The Force Awakens, and it's saying 9 days, 6 hours, and 53 minutes. So maybe that's still the...
That's right. That's counting down to midnight of the 18th. So that's right.
Oh,
just,
okay. Nine and some change. 9 and some change here.
Yeah, I guess if you go by the fact that we'll be actually seeing it, and many people who see it on the midnight premieres or the earlier premieres on the 17th, we're at 8 days.
I know, man. More importantly is this number, 7 days until you're coming up to near Atlanta. Not quite. We're saving you from the city limits, but you're coming near Atlanta to Fayetteville, Georgia, where we will meet up and get ready to take off to Austin, Texas. How are you feeling? I can't even talk. Like the last 2 episodes at the beginning of the show, I just get so increasingly excited. In these last few days, I'm just like, how are you feeling, Steve? How's it going?
Man, I am the old curmudgeon in the room, and I hate being that guy.
You are kind of. I'm not gonna lie. On this show, it's like I call them take ourselves down Tuesdays. We just like to temper ourselves a little bit.
And how sad? How sad is that? Because I'm supposed to be Mr. Excitement, Mr. Positivity, but I'm telling you, we were talking off air before the show got going about what you guys were talking about last night with the press conference, the Jar Jar comments, the Ewok comments. Of course, now look, George Lucas has seen the movie. He said it was great. That really encouraged me.
I believe you're
I'm up and down. I'm a roller coaster of emotions with this thing, but my butt's going to be in the seat. I am really hoping that it moves me the way that Creed moved me. When I saw Creed last week, and I don't know if I said this on Star Wars Tonight yet, I said it on Geek Out Loud, that Star Wars has a long way to go to outdo what Creed did for me as far as just being my favorite movie of the year so far. And, look, but here's the deal. My sickness. I'm right now drinking out of a Force Awakens Tervis tumbler that was given to me by my good friend Suzanne. I was just organizing some Journey of the Force Awakens trading cards before we got going. I'm surrounded by Star Wars collectibles here in the Star Wars room. So, yeah. So, I mean, there may be a bit of a hypocrisy to what I'm saying. and maybe it's just me subconsciously trying to, keep my expectations in check. But I don't want to bring down anyone else's fun. That's the whole thing. Is I don't want to rain on anyone else's parade because I'm enjoying the fact that everyone else is enjoying the lead up and the build up.
It is at a frantic pace, and I don't think I actually kind of like Tuesdays are keeping my sanity actually because like we were as we and we'll talk about it more later in the show, but we've been doing these watch parties for the movie live on Twitch, and I'm doing stuff like I'm just buying way more. I talked to Teresa yesterday on the phone. I give her a call, and this is the exact first word. She's like, "Hello," and then I'm like, "Teresa, I have darkened the doorway of a Toys R Us for the first time in 10 years." She just started laughing. But it's true. It's like I'm buying Lego sets, the Micro Fighters. It's and I'll tell you this, Steve. I kind of mentioned this on yesterday's show. There's never a better time to be a Star Wars blogger and podcaster because it's just, in the realm of hip hop, they say stacks on stacks on stacks. Here it's swag on swag on swag because Verizon just sent us these really cool, I'm going to show them up on the video here, virtual reality smartphone goggle things, that technology here. Empire Magazine just sent us all of their variant covers for this month's magazine. Like, people are mailing us stuff right and left, and of course, I'm not saying no. It's just like...
Hey, I've got some swag myself.
Oh, yeah? Well, let me ask you, sir. Do you like coffee?
I do like coffee, but... more than that, I like the fact that I've got all of the Star Wars Coffee Mate Creamer bottles now, thanks to one Riley H. Blanton. See what I did there?
Well done,
sir. Who yesterday I was just expecting to pick because we talked about getting it, and I'm like, well, I'll be up there, I'll get it. Yesterday, there's a box on my porch, and it's like the lightest box in the world. It's almost an exercise in futility. Is it Riley mailed to me an empty Darth Vader Coffee Mate Creamer?
I sure did, folks.
Oh, and it's great. So now I have them all. I did collect the whole set. But now, if anyone out there has an extra R2D2 droid viewer from the cereal boxes, from your General Mills cereals, I am looking. That's the one I need is the R2D2.
The call has been put out. It's StarWarsTonight@gmail.com. Email us if you have it. Stephanie in the chat was just saying, have I done the Jakku spy thing? So these coincide with the official Star Wars app, and there's evidently like a really cool virtual reality experience. And and this is the advantage of doing the video version. If you guys are listening on the podcast, go to youtube.com/user/Star Wars Report. Be sure to subscribe. I'm going to pull out the Kylo Ren set here. And you're going to see a really cool kind of box of a kind of high-quality cardboard hardened surface that has these two lenses attached to it, and then it unfolds and has like a pocket for your smartphone so that it turns into a glasses case that you then use as like the accelerometer and stuff, evidently, so that when you look around in your room, you're looking around inside the 3D environment of the Star Wars app. And it's funny that I should mention that. This is a really good opportunity to say, this is the perfect time to give one away, wouldn't you say, Steve?
I think so, Riley.
Let's do it. So here's
glad to take one. Thank you so much.
Disqualified as a co-host, I'm afraid. So sorry, sir. But I'll tell you what, this is what we're going to do. Because we've had a ton of folks helping us out and leaving reviews on iTunes. We're giving out all kinds of prizes. Speaking of swag, I'm giving half of it back away. So here's what you want to do. You want to leave us a review on iTunes. Go to StarWarsReport.com/Star Wars Tonight iTunes. All run together. All one word. That takes you to the iTunes store, or just search for us on iTunes. Star Wars Tonight. Leave a rating and review, and then just shoot me an email, starwarstonight@gmail.com. With your Apple ID, and I'll just kind of check back, make sure you left a review and all that good stuff, and then I'll get your mailing info and send out the grand prize winner. The person, so like people listening live now who haven't left a review, obviously, if you've already gotten swag, we're not sending it, we're not doing double dipping. All right, we're gonna all play nice now. But here's your chance. The first person to email me gets this very Kylo Ren virtual reality experience goggles from Verizon, and I've got second and third place prizes as well to mail out to the next three people who email us. I feel very NPR fundraiser. The next three callers are going to get posters and prints and magazines and other things that people are sending to us, because Lord knows I don't have room for it. Uh, but that's a way. Steve, I can't wait for you to actually see this studio because you can kind of see the cool background. But it's just like slowly now that school is mostly over, I've got 2 tests left, and I'm pretty much prepared for them. So it's all just like Star Wars season all the way. I'm spending time putting up posters and building Lego sets and just jumping in the deep end. More than I have ever before.
Are we going to try and record something Tuesday night?
Well, it's I'm glad you asked because we have the return of the Justin Monday night because I didn't book the last week intentionally. I knew it would be the final days and it'd be crazy. But I just talked to Justin Robert Young. I will have him, and hopefully I'm going to be getting in touch with his good buddy Brian Brushwood because fun story, Steve, announced right at the end of yesterday's episode. Justin Robert Young had grand plans to go to the brand spanking new Alamo Drafthouse in Los Angeles. However, those
the one
plans,
in Los Angeles or the one in Nebraska?
Los Angeles. No, he's not. He's an Oakland resident in California, so that'd be a pretty long trip. But no, he had grand plans to go see it, experience it, have a great time with some of his friends there, and we were talking about it. But unfortunately, duty has called. He is launching a really creative and awesome project with Brian Brushwood in the week leading up to The Force Awakens. I can't reveal any of the details here, but suffice it to say, it's really awesome. So you should stay tuned to our Twitters, and we'll be getting the info out soon. But he will be in Austin, sir. And so it's almost like if only we could just like fly Scott Rifen out and Amy Ratcliffe, we would have all the co-hosts in the same place watching the screening. But I'm very excited, man. It's a really great opportunity. So yeah. But I'll tell you what, man, we've got a lot to talk about. So, in fact, I thought doing a daily podcast would kind of satiate the flood of news. I find myself with so many stories and so many interviews and new audio clips and Good Morning America segments and Carrie Fisher being crazier in each subsequent one.
Bless her heart.
Bless her soul. Her and her dog, Gary, who is now, as he well should be, a viral sensation.
That tongue hanging out. There should be a Twitter's account called Gary's Tongue.
Oh,
I mean, like...
It's a matter of time, sir. But I wanted to highlight this piece that came out this morning from Anthony Bresnikan, of course, of Entertainment Weekly, writer extraordinaire. He hosted the big Force Awakens panel at Celebration Anaheim. And famously, I sat in the audience looking off to the side and saying, who is this guy? Who's Anthony Bresnikan? Why isn't James Arnold Taylor up there? That was what I was asking. But he's actually turned out, now that I've actually corresponded with him a little bit here and there, he's a really cool guy. And now I feel terrible about it. I'll be sure to never say anything about it publicly. Oh, wait. But he's been doing this video series on Entertainment Weekly that kind of does a nice feature on some aspect of the Star Wars universe. He's talked about the Force, some of the different characters, and they're doing a video each week in the lead up. And he does this really cool kind of behind-the-scenes story of the Millennium Falcon, how it was constructed, or do you say Falcon? Falcon?
Back and forth.
I was going to say, if you go for the Harrison Ford pronunciation, he's like, I'm Han Solo, captain of the Millennium Falcon.
If I say the Falcon, if I just say Falcon, yeah, I say Falcon.
Yeah.
But I do tend to go Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, when you add the two together, it's kind of natural. Yeah. But we do know one thing, Steve.
What's that?
It flies with destiny. Anyway,
Lord. You know I fall in the Teresa camp, don't you?
Oh, I do.
No, well, I take that back. I'm not as harsh as she is. I dig what you've done. I'm all for it. Like, it's your show. You do it your way. You do you, boo, as they say. But I prefer the Techno over the Falcon.
Well, it's true. It's like all of my co-hosts do, for the most part, with the exception. But the Twitter poll is spoken, which Scott got really mad at me for doing, probably justly so, because you know me, Steve. You know me.
What's some of the best podcasting I've ever heard in my life? that when Scott was getting all over you about that, I loved it.
Yeah, no, I deserved it. But all right, so let's go to Anthony Bresnikan. He's talking about the Millennium Falcon here, and just listen really closely, Steve, and see if anything jumps out to you here. Here we go.
Scott, a complete overhaul in The Force Awakens before director J.J. Abrams decided tried and true was probably preferable to newfangled. They pushed it very far in the concept illustrations, trying to imagine what a really different, radically futuristic Falcon might look like. And the main reason they wanted to do this was they wanted the ship to be instantly recognizable as part of this new trilogy, instead of just getting confused with the original. So there is one major eye-catching alteration. This Falcon has a rectangular radar dish instead of a circular one like the original. But there's a very good plot reason for that too, beyond just routine maintenance over 30 years.
That was too close.
There it is.
Yep.
Anything jump out to you, Steve?
Well, the fact that they are talking about doing a more futuristic looking Falcon, I'll be honest with you, I've seen some stills and some pictures where the cockpit looks a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
It looks a lot, so I've been kind of anxious to see inside the cockpit to see what they're doing, or if or even if what they're showing is actually the cockpit of the Falcon, or if it's just some clever editing in a trailer type situation. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, that's the first thing we all noticed was that rectangular shaped dish on top, rather than the round disc that we were all, you know, familiar with for years and years and years.
Yep,
It's taking some getting used to. Not gonna lie to you, taking some getting used to.
That was too close. Evidently it was going to be a lot different from the early concept stages, but then Abrams decided to, like you said, go for the more tried and true with just some, I guess, minor alterations. Because if you ask my mom when we see the trailer if she would immediately notice the differences of the Falcon, you wouldn't. But I remember looking at Star Wars Celebration, at that exhibit with all the models and costumes. That was one of the first things I noticed was, man, you get to see the radar dish is just totally different. Mm-hmm. I wonder how I hope they reference it somehow, like Han Solo's still bitter about him not getting a scratch on it, because that emphatically is a scratch.
Dude, as a kid, I obsessed over that. I obsessed over that, and I obsessed over the fact that Luke went back to Tatooine to save Han. Like, it never, for whatever reason, hyperbole never settled in on me as a child, so that when Lando said, she won't get a scratch, I promise, and that dish falls off, I was like, I kind of thought it was a joke. I'm like, well, that's funny. He said not a scratch, and there it is, you know. But then I was also like, well, that's going to be a fallout because he promised not a scratch. But then also in Star Wars and A New Hope, you know, Ben tells Luke, you're going to have to sell your speeder. And he's like, that's fine. I'm never coming back to this rock again. Mm-hmm. And then he turns around and he goes back in Jedi.
If only he had that speeder.
It never dawned on me as a kid that that's okay. He was going to save his friend. I was just like, Luke said he was never going back.
And it's a waste of a speeder, too.
Yeah, well, you know, ever since the B-28s came out, they're just not in demand.
Well, I'm going to tune in. All good observations, but what I think is particularly significant is when he mentions that the radar dish, and that there's a significant plot reason for it to be changed, not just that. Either he's referencing, of course, just the change, obviously, in Return of the Jedi, where the radar dish gets knocked off, but there's a twinkle in his eye. And I'm guessing that, and a part of this is colored by an email I got from a listener of the Star Wars Report that I promptly had to stop reading and then sent, because it was speculation, but extremely well-grounded speculation. But it makes me wonder, and again, I'll actually go ahead and throw out a semi-spoiler warning, because if this is true, it's not a terrible spoiler, but if it's true, it could be nice to learn it in the film. But I think, man, I'm getting more and more cautious too, Steve, as we get close to the event. But suffice to say, we'll put it this way: I think this is pretty safe, but skip forward like 40 seconds if you're worried. I think the Millennium Falcon has a significant role in the explanation of what went down between the end of Return of the Jedi and the beginning of this movie, and I think that the Battle of Endor didn't end the way that we would think it ends in Return of the Jedi. That's at least I think I won't go into specifics, but I think that's my thoughts.
No, wait a second. How do you mean?
I just don't think... of course I'm going to reference it because it's a great show. I was listening to it earlier today, but Rebels Declassified from Rebel Force Radio, Kyle Newman was talking about how the marketing's talking about how the Jedi are just legend. And he's like, it's not like we pretend Vietnam didn't happen. We all know. Why would they be legend? Why would nobody know who Luke Skywalker was? I mean, nobody knew who he was except for a handful of rebel soldiers, and even in Return of the Jedi, it's not like he was in there on the intercom saying, "Commander Skywalker's taking command of Red Squadron." He wasn't. In fact, he was in a personal duel, and I think that if a large part of the Imperial fleet escaped, while they may have lost control of the whole galaxy, I think that there's some version of an empire, obviously, that has survived and transformed. And I think for some reason, obviously, we haven't seen Luke Skywalker anywhere. I think there's legitimate reason to think that these are legends.
Well, I tell you, I think that the Jedi, and because what Han says in the trailer is, it's true, all of it. The dark side, the Force, the Jedi, it's all true. I think that aspect of everything that happened in the original trilogy is still kind of confusing and legendary to people.
Yeah.
Because though we as viewers and consumers of this story experience the Return of the Return of the Jedi happened between three people, two of which died.
Yeah.
You know?
That's true. That's true.
And you're very correct. You know, Luke was known for blowing up the first Death Star. He was Commander Skywalker at Hoth. After Hoth, think about this. After Hoth, he leaves, he goes to Dagobah. He comes to Cloud City, not in any rebel mission, but just to save his friends, where he promptly gets his hand chopped off. They do go back to the rebel rendezvous point, but then he's off on his own mission again with his friends to save Han Solo. They go back to the rebel rendezvous point, okay, after they've got Han, and they leave to go to Endor, and you said it great. Luke had no part in what happened on the mission on Endor, other than to get them there, to, get there with them and leave.
Yep.
To go confront Vader. What Luke was doing was very important, but it was happening in a way that most people didn't understand or could comprehend just how vital what was going on in that throne room was. So when Luke comes back, it's, the Emperor's dead. Well, whose word do we have for that? We have Luke's word. But just because the Emperor is dead doesn't mean the rest of the Empire is going to face it. Now there's a power vacuum, and everyone's going to be trying to fill that power vacuum.
Yep.
Everyone who was trying to get close to the Emperor so that they could have the power is now going to try to step in and fill that power vacuum. Aftermath does a really good job. The book Aftermath does a good job of kind of showing what happens on Coruscant right after they tear the Emperor's statue down. Well, and that is that stormtroopers come and break up the party.
Yeah, and now that you reminded me of that, that's so true. I'd forgotten about that because I've not read Aftermath, but it does Aftermath, and I'll just ask you, if you don't mind, so maybe some minor spoilers there, but is it left indicated that everyone celebrated and the Empire was totally overthrown and forgotten about?
No, in fact, it was actually a scene, an excerpt that Entertainment Weekly, I think, got around. They got Admiral Akbar's speech, but also I think they had what happened there on Coruscant. The scene shifts to Coruscant, where they're having the big party. The statue comes down, and as the statue comes down, stormtroopers come rolling in, and the people have already thrown one over the side. Well, now the rest come in, and they start making arrests. They start shooting up the place, and even kill a few people.
Yeah,
and that sets some events into motion. The Empire is still very much at work. Aftermath ends on a bit of a cliffhanger as far as there's someone out there and they don't know who it is, and there's been a lot of speculation as to who that person is. But I think that what we're seeing, and I think J.J. Abrams even said it, that the idea of the First Order is, what if after World War II, all of the Nazis who really were loyal to Hitler and who really did buy into his philosophies and ideas and everything, what if they all just moved to a mountain in Argentina?
Yeah.
And just began to build back up from there. This is kind of that idea that you've got an organization now who is trying to maintain their grip on the galaxy. And the Resistance is a group who is just trying to stop that from happening, who is literally, they're not a rebellion, they are resisting the rise again of an evil empire, of evil in the galaxy. So I don't, back to the Millennium, to bring it back around to the Millennium Falcon situation, I think that the plot point that he was talking about was exactly that, was the plot point in Jedi. And I think that's what we're all supposed to think of and think about when we see the new radar dish.
Yeah.
I think what's more interesting is, where has the Falcon been since Return of the Jedi? You know, whose hands has it been in? Because the scene in that trailer we saw at Celebration, Chewie, we're home, that's Han and Chewie on the Falcon, and Han there as though he hasn't been there in a while. So
That's what it looks like, man. It is. It's
so I'm thinking the Falcon has a story of its own.
And you're talking
that-
about beyond just a humorous note if they replace the radar disc. You're talking about, and he mentions in the video that it's rebuilt. So I wonder, like who rebuilt it, because there are some significant differences as you look closely at this Falcon from a construction point of view. It doesn't look the same.
Well, if you look at the big toy they've got right now, there's a huge cannon that pops out of the middle and fires a Nerf dart.
Can you imagine that at the end of the movie? Like, holy cow!
Yeah, what if that's the big moment? Like, that's the thing that's kind of I'm like, what happens if I'm watching this movie and all of a sudden someone says, "Well, watch this," and they press a button and the top unfolds and this huge cannon pops? I'm like, I now have to have that toy. I thought it was just a gimmick, but it's actually a plot device.
Oh man. That would be amazing. It kind of goes down to what we were talking about on our Empire Strikes Back watch party, in that what needs to happen to this movie is whatever this new super weapon is, this Star Killer base, it needs to attack a rebel base, but there be a giant gaseous planet in the way, and it just blows it up and then subsequently destroys the base. not unlike...
Well, not unlike Robot Chicken. Or was that Robot Chicken, or what was that?
That was, I think, how it should have ended on YouTube.
That's right, how it should have ended. Here's the thing. I don't know. Now you're getting me off on a tangent, but I'll go there because you opened the door, sir.
I sure did.
Right through.
Step right through, sir.
The weapon had to charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you fired it once, it's obviously going to have to charge again, so there'd still be time there. I think you were dealing with an empire that didn't want to just willy-nilly blow things up for the sake of blowing things up, you know. They'd already blown up Alderaan, and there's no telling what kind of calamity that caused in hyperspace lanes and that sort of thing. So it's probably an idea of the moon, blowing up the moon of this gas giant is going to do a lot less damage to the galaxy than blowing up this planet.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You know, so, but also the idea of people like make the joke of, why didn't they just come out on the side where the moon was? Well, then you don't understand space travel. You know, you can't just suddenly appear there. You got to.
This is true. This is true.
The gas giant was in the way, so they had to get there and go around it.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Excellent. I do want to take a moment, though, to thank the folks supporting this show and take a brief moment to thank our patrons. You too can support us and join this fine community of folks at patreon.com/Star Wars Report. We are in the final week. We've got one more bonus Friday show that we're going to be putting up for everyone supporting us at any level as part of the network. And we really do thank everyone who's jumped in the last week or two, specifically just in the last week, Kai, Mario, Matt, Devin, and today, Daniel and Robbie. So I really appreciate everyone who's jumped on board to help support daily content, because it's been a blast. It's not really sustainable, but like, we're embracing the moment here while we're there, and we're doing our best to provide you guys all kinds of bonus audio and, of course, T-shirts and all that good stuff. If you want to check out the goodies that we offer, you can just go to patreon.com/Star Wars Report. And I also want to take a moment before, right while we're at the middle of the show, because I realized, Steve, there's a problem. I would do these plugs right at the end when everyone jumps off ship. It's sort of the equivalent of Padme in Episode 3 when 3PO's freaking trying to land the thing on Mustafar and there's lava shipping around and she just jumps out and runs down the ramp before it even finishes landing. But anyway, that's another thing. So but instead of waiting till everyone's jumping off the ship to make this announcement, after that extended analogy, I want to mention our live watch party. Our final live watch party is this Saturday. That is Saturday the 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got Era Chernovice joining us. Teresa's waiting in the wings, waiting to see if she'll be available. And assuming that she's finally able to overcome a really bad case of strep throat, my sister will make a grand appearance on the finale of our live watch parties of the Star Wars movies. So make sure that you head over to StarWarsReport.com/live on that night. Again, that's 8 p.m. this Saturday, Saturday the 12th, and head to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Star Wars Report. I have not set it up. I'll be doing it later tonight for you guys watching live. A Facebook event where you can RSVP and get a reminder, and it'll have all the ongoing updated info there as we get more details. But yeah, let's cap it off. Let's make it a big deal. It was a huge event last week, much bigger than I thought, watching A New Hope. So,
I have a question about your live watch party.
Sure
Riley.
thing.
You've been building some Legos during this thing.
I sure have.
What have you built? What are some things because I've not had the opportunity to be around to watch?
Here's the thing, Steve, is that I start building a lot of things during these watch parties, but I never finish them because I get distracted and then sit down. It was sort of like a victory. Everyone was taking bets in the chat of when I would finally give up and just join in the live watch party fully. But the main thing that I built during and then I finished it afterwards this past Saturday. I'm gonna reach back here on the video version. For everybody, again, that's youtube.com/user/Star Wars Report, and you're gonna see this awesome. There we go, X-wing.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, there you.
It's the old It's from the old Dagobah Lego set. So I still have to build Yoda's hut. But yeah, I'm telling you, man, it's been an absolute blast. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff. But
I was so disappointed. I was going to bite the bullet. They had the new Cantina set on clearance at the Walmart here locally.
Oh, nice.
And I almost bought it the other night, and I said, no. And then I went earlier this week. I had to go to Walmart, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet on that. And they had like 3 sets sitting there for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then I go over there earlier this week, and they're gone. So I missed out on my opportunity for that.
I know. It's in high demand. I was doing some Christmas shopping at, like I said, Toys R Us, and like they were near. Like, I think they had one out of a giant stack that had been there. There's this giant gaping hole in the Lego section where the Millennium Falcon should go. And those things are expensive, and they weren't even on sale. They're just selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, well, this isn't. I was doing a clearance Mos Eisley set, so not the Millennium Falcon at all.
Yeah.
Because I can't bite the bullet on that. Those Legos are expensive.
Yes, absolutely. I'll never forget, Steve. Years ago, it was in the episode 1 documentary that accompanied the DVD, and it actually accompanied the first way I saw it was on an old VHS tape where they actually tacked it onto the end of the film. I think it's called The Beginning, if memory serves me correctly anyway.
I think memory's not serving you correctly. That documentary wasn't on until the DVD.
Oh, that wasn't until the DVD? Yeah.
There was no VHS with that documentary on it, sir.
Well,
because that's like a 2-hour documentary.
Let's see, episode 1. Because you're almost certainly right, sir. Because my memory is very fuzzy on such things. Star Wars. It's a great documentary, by the way. It's the only one that they really gave the full making of treatment.
Oh, and I was wishing they would have done it for 2 and 3.
It's really well done. It's really well done. As I've mentioned once before, it's distinct because I remember there was cursing on it. And I was like, wait, on a Star Wars? There's cursing in a Star Wars DVD? I didn't even know they could do that. And, of course, it was Ewan McGregor. Let's all be honest. That's highly expected. But watching it, I'll never forget, at the end, it kind of culminates with an opening night screening at episode 1 where they're shooting footage of the fans as they first let them into the theater. And that this one fan, the first 2 who rush in, one bolts straight back to the theater, and the other one falls on the carpet and kisses the floor. And then you see Rick McCallum standing there, and comedically, he also drops a little S-bomb, but it's bleeped. So
right.
These are the things you remember when you're like 14 watching something, at least for me. But I'll never forget, because watching that, it was just the first time I really, I think, got a full picture of what fandom was like at that time. And I think that's something that so many younger fans just don't know, of the level of fanaticism and excitement surrounding episode 1. And we're finally kind of getting to that stage here, I would say, if not more so, with The Force Awakens. But in this book that I just finished last week, in fact, Justin chastised me as I told the story of the author literally handing me an autographed copy, and I still didn't read it until at Celebration. Didn't read it until this past week. And that is How Star Wars Conquered the Universe.
Mhm.
And it's really well done. It's a kind of a nice linear chronicling of a lot of fandom that I think you, Steve, and I was as well familiar with, like Albin Johnson and the advent of the 501st and the Mando Mercs, as well as all the early behind the scenes of George Lucas's creative process and what was called back then the Posse. Right, John Dykstra, all those guys, and it's a really nice linear look at the whole Star Wars phenomenon. I can't recommend it highly enough, but this one section of that episode 1 documentary that I still remember to this day is featured in a chapter where he's gone back and interviewed a lot of these guys and talked about the early times when people started lining up for the Phantom Menace. Specifically, it wasn't the El Capitan Theater, but it was a famous theater in Hollywood. I've blanked on the name. That footage. I think that was it. Yeah, that was the theater. Famously, at the episode 1 screening where Francis Ford Coppola walked out in the middle of the movie to smoke a cigarette during an early screening. But that famous line was there for like over a month. And it was a big communal event, and they had shifts as everyone they worked out there. I'm trying to think of the right word. It was very communal. Or communal, if I might add, where they figured out their own system of whoever waited in line this long would get access to one ticket, and then they would go through shifts and try to get more. And it was just incredible to read about these different fans and their background and how they landed there together in this unique experience. And I just really enjoyed it. But I say all that to say, Steve, people are lining up. From the New York Times, their featured article today. This is by Brooks Barnes. He has a piece up called Star Wars The Force Awakens fans are already lining up. And I say already like they're 2 weeks overdue by Phantom Menace timeline.
That's true.
But
yeah, you've got the whole pre-sales and everything that are done these days.
Absolutely. The culture has changed so much, but it's such an institution of Star Wars fandom that Jesse Casper and Nicholas Johnson are among the first fans lining up outside of what was formerly called Mann's Chinese Theater. And there's an Australian woman there. There's all kinds of folks, and they're participating in a kind of excitement that I thought was a bygone era. But the more we get closer to The Force Awakens, the more I'm reminded of what I've learned, especially in books like How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. Things haven't changed. Everything is. I'm going to quote Mark Hamill from the behind the scenes writers. I mean, nothing's really changed, but everything's changed.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Though records have been broken as far as like internet pre-sales and that sort of thing goes. I'm looking here in this article. AMC Theater says that they still have 3.5 million tickets available. 36 AMC theaters will run The Force Awakens around the clock. So you're talking about a 24-hour period, at least for a few days, where at any given time during the day, Star Wars will be being shown in 36 different theaters in the country. So it's a whole different thing. Where we're going, they have reserved seating, so we don't have to wait in line to get the best seat. Our seats are reserved with like if you went to a concert or something, But I remember, man, I never lined up for more than a few hours, but I've done the line thing, and it is fun. At Celebration 3, at Star Wars Celebration 3, George Lucas was making a rare on-stage appearance. He was doing 3 different times one day during Star Wars Celebration 3, and people were lining up for it the night before. And there was that whole idea of, and no one who was running the con at that time, it was a different organization than runs the runs the cons now, than runs celebrations now. No one had given any information about, what are you going to do with these people that are lining up? How are we going to handle getting it? It had kind of been in some instances a bit of a hassle, the way that things were done at that particular celebration. But as we talked to different fans, like somehow the word got around to everybody. We're going to do it this way, and when they start handing out, wristbands, then we'll be here ready for them. And and my friend and I, we considered waiting in line overnight. And I said, you know what? No, not this time. I just don't. And so I ended up doing that pretty much at Celebration 5. But at C3 there, man, it was the same way. The fans began to work together. to make it happen and to help each other out, rather than there wasn't a bunch of elbowing and shoving and pushing trying to get in. Everyone's like, we're going to make sure that everyone who wants to get in here will.
Yes, no, I definitely. And that's part of Star Wars fandom. That's part of what makes it so special. If you've ever been to a Star Wars celebration, there's a very special sense and really just sanity to the community. As weird as that sounds, because I do like the way that we tend to self-organize and use our passions for good. And that's one thing that this book talks about so much when you're talking about people like the 501st, and you're talking about the Mando Mercs and the whole Wear Star Wars, Share Star Wars Day, and things like, like the R2KT for Albin Johnson's daughter had cancer. It's just really, it never gets old. And there are times where I realize just how involved people are just here in the Atlanta fan community. It just blows my mind. I wish I could be more involved than I am. But that's just the way it goes, man.
I would think you'd be spearheading that community up there.
No, sir. No, sir. I wish. But sadly, I just need more time. There was a press conference that TechCrunch was at. In fact, they have an article, I think, interestingly dubbed, quote, 67 photos from inside Disney's secret Star Wars press event. Ooh. Did you get your invite, Steve?
To the press event?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, but I just couldn't make it.
Huh.
Yeah, I told him.
How about that?
I told him thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, no, I really, yeah. No, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That press event, man, it was, heard it was great. Heard it was great.
What came out? I mean, other than the Jar Jar and the Ewok thing, what came out of it?
Well, Steve, I'm glad you asked, because actually, if you want, we'll throw it in the show notes to this episode as well on StarWarsReport.com. But everybody was there. It was basically all the cast and crew, including Harrison Ford, which is awesome. They had a T-shirt printing machine, handed out T-shirts. Man, this sounds like a great event. Great event. I just gonna leave that there. They had, of course, the fully working BB-8 was present, and everyone was taking pictures with it, except me. And there was also J.J. Abrams as well. And so they had, of course, a bunch of the costumes on display as well. But what I kind of wanted to highlight was actually some of the Q&A itself.
Sure.
And I actually, I'm going to jump through because I don't want to get any of the quote wrong. So I'm going to scroll through like 45 of the other pictures that are all literally of all the costumes over and over again. Although I will say this, Captain Phasma looks incredible. Even in it looks sort of surreal in the trailers, but Captain Phasma in these up close shots just insane. So it was so in a surprise, it was moderated by Mindy Kaling, and evidently it was pretty.
Yeah, what's that about?
I mean, didn't you get your call, Steve? I thought you were gonna moderate.
Well, I mean, look, I like Mindy. She's great. She's funny. She's charming. She's beautiful. I don't understand how she got tapped to be the one who was moderating this particular thing. Why not a Bresnikan? Why not?
I was gonna say, you know who should? Anthony Bresnikan. Now that's a true professional host. I would never doubt his professionalism and hosting quality ever. Let it be known.
You've already said.
Send this clip of audio right to.
You did a great. I didn't realize Mindy Kaling had that geeky bone in her body, though.
I did not know either. And they divided into two 45-minute panels, and the first one was Oscar Isaac, Gwendolyn Christie, John Boyega, Kathleen Kennedy, Harrison Ford, and man, it looks good. So here's the quote. Our Ewoks in this one. Crowd laughs. Quote, no Ewoks in this film, but there are lots in Return of the Jedi. Oh, see, they skip past the quote. Come on, TechCrunch. The best quote was, "Not alive anyway." It's a laughter. All right. So, yub nub. Also, Jar Jar, not in it. Kathleen Kennedy, no Jar Jar. Definitely not in the movie. Again, kind of just humor that I think we just have to endure. It's just the way it goes.
Do we have to for it though?
Although I mean, Oscar Isaac did say, this is a pretty good quote, that Jar Jar is Kylo Ren.
Well, he said that was one of his favorite fan theories.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I forget about that. Yeah, that's so true. And then I was trying to remember. There was one last thing. Okay, yeah. Here's really what I wanted to ask you about, Steve. And we mentioned it briefly in the episode yesterday. But when asked about whether or not there would be any stingers in the film, any like Easter egg moments right at the very end, a la Marvel style, man, there are a lot of pictures in this. JJ says, "Quote: No, all the movie scenes are, comma, you know, comma, in the movie." Throw a little shade there towards the old Marvel crew.
No. I don't think that's throwing shade. Marvel has set up this way of doing things. Marvel movies are comic book movies, are comic books brought to the big screen. And if you read a lot of comics, used to comics, and they still do to an extent, the story itself will be over, and then there'll be a page that's just an epilogue that may have something to do with what you've just seen, or it may have something to do with setting up what's to come. And what the little snippet scenes at the end of the Marvel movies are just epilogues. They're buttons on the film, but that's never been the way Star Wars has done things. And so I don't think that they should start now. I think that you've got, when you're doing Star Wars, and I've said this again and again and again, there's a visual language, there's a style to it, and I don't think that you need to, as Star Wars, try to do what everyone else or what other people have been doing. Star Wars sets the tone. Star Wars raises the bar and sets the bar at a certain thing for everyone else to get to. And so to do what Marvel's been doing, there's no sense in it, because that's a Marvel thing, and it works for Marvel, but I don't think it's needed for Star Wars.
Folks, that puts this, the 17th episode of Star Wars Tonight, in the proverbial can. Well said, Steve. It is a different universe. It is very different from the world of Marvel Comics, even though there are comparisons to be made. But I think if we did a stinger, I would still be open to it for spin-off films, but maybe not so much for the I guess the saga films, for lack of a better term. Folks, you can reach out to us. It's Star Wars Tonight at gmail.com. Make sure that you are subscribed and leaving those ratings and reviews in iTunes. Be sure to send your username, your Apple username, to me via email, StarWarsTonight at gmail.com. Next 3 people. I'll be making this announcement on Twitter, too, so get on it if you're listening live. If you've not received a prize yet from me, shoot me an email, and I'll be sending out the Kylo Ren virtual reality goggles, as well as some other fun posters and magazines. So, StarWarsTonight at gmail.com. Leave your ratings and reviews. Get the word out. We do appreciate it. Steve, where can folks find you?
GeekOutPodcasts.com is the place to go, my friend. GeekOutPodcast.com. There you'll find all the different shows that are done that we do almost daily at GeekOutPodcast.com. Been doing it for a while now.
I don't know how you do it, Steve, because I'm gonna be sad and happy all at the same time when this whole project ends. This whole experiment in nightly podcasting. Thanks again to all our supporters on Patreon. Thanks to Kai, Mario, Matt, Devin, and Daniel, as well as Robbie, for jumping in on the support train. You can do so as well. Patreon.com/Star Wars Report. Follow us on Twitter. It's at Star Wars Tonight. And follow us on Twitter. It's at Steve Glosson and at The Riley Guy. The Riley Guy. Until next time, may the Force be with you. And emphatically, don't get eaten by Ewoks. Just don't do it. No, don't do it. Woo!
Those little Muppet walks.
Gonna stop the video edition. Thanks to everybody watching on YouTube.